Yesterday evening, the Cabinet cleared what's called the Undisclosed Foreign Income and Assets Bill. It imposes penalties of 300% and rigorous imprisonment of up to 10 years for people with wealth hidden abroad. But is this an effective response to the problem of black money, or simply an attempt to show the country the government has acted? With me are three people who clearly should know. They are the former CEO of the Royal Bank of Scotland, Meera Sanyal, one of India's top investment advisors, SP Tulsian, and one of India's top tax experts, Subhash Lakhotia. Subhash Lakhotia, yesterday the Cabinet cleared what's called the Undisclosed Foreign Income and Assets Bill, and it's reported that it will be tabled in this very session of Parliament. It imposes penalties of up to 300% and rigorous imprisonment of up to 10 years on people who are found to have wealth hidden abroad. My question is this: as a tax expert, how do you evaluate this step as a way of tackling the problem of black money?
What you have just spoken, namely 300% penalty, 10 years imprisonment, these things are not relevant, especially when we want to decide and we want to get in India back our money lying abroad. What I feel personally is, through this bill, the short-term period during which the taxpayers can bring back their money from abroad, declare it, and no prosecution for them, and a small little penalty, if that is implemented in a spirit, and also if that is the provisions amidst really simple one, then definitely a lot of money will come back. Otherwise, money will not come back.
You're saying a very interesting thing, and I'm breaking it down for the audience. First of all, you're saying these stringent punishments, 300% penalty, 10 years rigorous imprisonment, this is irrelevant. This is not going to bring money back. What will bring money back is that brief window in the bill, and we don't know how long it lasts, when people can bring money back, pay tax and a penalty, but not suffer prosecution.
And relax.
That window, if it's big enough, will bring money back.
Very true. The window should be minimum 6 months.
Minimum 6 months?
Minimum 6 months.
Is there a maximum?
Reasonably, it should be 6 to 9 months.
Okay. Meera Sanyal, I want to put that same question to you as I put a moment ago to Subhash Lakhotia. In your eyes, is this measure more a measure to appease domestic opinion and show the government is acting, or do you believe this is the best possible way of bringing back black money by threatening those who are caught with rigorous imprisonment and 300% penalties?
Look, Karan, I think it's very important that you have a credible deterrence. We've had amnesty schemes before, and they haven't yielded much. So I think the combination of the window, and I don't believe it should be a very long window, but the combination of the window and very stringent penalties, including the possibility under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act to actually confiscate these assets, I think is very important. Because unless the government shows that it's absolutely serious about, curbing the menace of black money stashed abroad, and equally also dealing with domestic black money, they're talking of the Benami Transaction Act, I think these two measures need to go hand in hand. I'm very happy the government has taken this step, and I hope they are going to be able to pass it through Parliament.
So the interesting thing, Meera Sanyal, is whilst you agree with Subhash Lakhotia about the importance of that window, whether you call it an amnesty or not, where you disagree with Mr. Lakhotia is that you believe the strong deterrent punishment is an important element. It will deter. A quick yes or no?
Yes, absolutely.
We have an interesting difference of opinion, therefore, Mr. Tulsian, on whether that actual deterrence will be a reason and an incentive for people to bring back their black money. Do you think fear that if they are caught, they could end up with 10 years rigorous imprisonment, they could end up paying 300% penalties, will actually either encourage or coerce people to bring their black money back? Do you think that deterrent and scare will be sufficient to do that?
Yes, Karan, I think that compliance scheme which the government is talking about is definitely a window or maybe an opportunity being given to the offenders that if they bring back their money, they will be asked to pay a penalty of 300% of the tax amount. Let's not confuse with the asset or the income value. It is 300% of the tax amount on which the offender will not be able to claim any deductions or anything like that. So the only saving grace, though they have not defined that what will be the penalty amount, under the compliance scheme, whether it will be 200%, 250% or it remains 300%, but that will definitely be a big encouragement or maybe a deterrent or will scare them to come forward and file this or take the advantage of this compliance scheme to avoid the rigorous imprisonment of 10 years.
You know, this is very interesting. Both Meera Sanyal and Mr. Tulsian disagree with you. They do believe that this rigorous imprisonment of 10 years, the fear of 300% penalties will be so strong that it will A, encourage people to use that window to bring their money back, and B, it could very possibly deter people from sending more money illegally abroad. Do you want to defend your position?
But the point is, first point what I want is, money should come to India, not merely fear. And this 300% is nothing new. Let me tell our viewers that already in the income tax law, under section 271(1)(c), for concealment of the income, there is penalty equal to 300% of the tax payable.
Is the rigorous imprisonment new?
Nothing new, only period, slightly period is more. There could be 4 years, 6 years, they are going to make it 10 years.
So you're saying, I'm stopping you again because you're saying an important thing. You're saying that this new element of fear, the new element of rigorous punishment is not new, it already exists.
Already.
And if it hasn't, because it already exists, done the job of encouraging people to bring their money back, by re-emphasizing it and reiterating it, you're not going to add any greater fear.
The point is, what is required is, just about 2 years back, I remember, some of the clients told me that in USA, this type of scheme was there. And they clearly said that if you bring the money back to USA, pay the taxes which you have not paid in USA on your Indian income, then thereafter we will exempt all of you. But then the people were so disturbed. They paid all the taxes because they had fear that government will immediately find us out. In India, that type of fear is non-existent, which we can see clearly.
But why is it non-existent? Because you don't think the government will act?
No, because the point is 271(1)(c), penalty for evaders in India
has already
and
been
jail
there.
is already there for last 50 years.
Quite right. And if it hasn't,
and how many jails
quite right,
people have gone?
If it hasn't worked earlier, it won't work now. Meera Sanyal, this bill goes one step beyond just adding to the fear of those who have money stashed abroad. It also imposes penalties on banks and financial institutions and possibly individuals within those banks and institutions who are considered to have abetted black money offenders. Now, you've been CEO of a major bank. To what extent will that ensure either that banks are very careful and cautious about the money they accept or the money they remit, and to what extent will that in turn deter the adding to black money abroad?
Look, Karan, I think we really need to look at this in a slightly wider context. Across the world, anti-money laundering laws have become very, very strict. And all India is doing is, matching up to that. If you remember in the G20 summit last year in Australia, the Prime Minister was a very, very vocal supporter of the multilateral agreement for automatic exchange of information. So we need to have these laws very strongly in India so that we can exchange information automatically. At the moment, for example, if India goes to a country like Switzerland, they cite banking privacy laws under which they can't exchange information. So we are one of the signatories, we're one of the proponents of this law.
Can I interrupt?
And we do need to make it stronger.
But the point I want to ask is this: to what extent now is the new element of the bill that will impose penalties and punishment on banks and institutions and individuals within those banks going to be a further deterrent to people stashing money abroad? Because now banks will be very scared. They themselves could be prosecuted. Their employees could be prosecuted. Is that another important step this bill takes?
I think it absolutely is. Banks like ours, the bank which I was with, was already under these laws because in the home country of many of the multinational banks in India, we had to comply with this. I think it's an excellent step. It's raising the level of compliance of all banks onto a common high standard.
Mr. Tulsian, let me put an opposite consideration to you. Is there a danger that this new tough bill will not just lead to bureaucratic problems, because it will empower the bureaucracy and the investigating agencies to take actions which otherwise perhaps they might not have done, but secondly, and perhaps more importantly, it could lead to harassment of people who legally open foreign accounts and legally remit money through the many schemes the RBI has. Are we therefore adding to the potential for harassment of people who are not doing anything illegal?
See, Karan, you can't you can't expect to have a 100% harassment-free laws. But as regards the harassment to the genuine people, the finance minister, I think, has categorically mentioned that the students, those who have been going for education and all that, they are opening their accounts there. They have their assets stashed abroad. Also, they will all be exempted. So I think the clear-cut law which will get formulated or which will get structured has to cover all these things, number one. Number two, I don't think that because the whole legislation which they intend to structure revolves around the assets and income. And definitely those things can definitely get established by the assessing authorities or whoever may be the officers who will be responsible to carry out these assessments. I don't think that harassment part can really be such a big negative, or will be seen
a quick interruption, sir. A quick interruption. Tax authorities have enormous discretionary powers. Does this give them scope to misuse those discretionary powers?
See, Karan, because ultimately that's what I was coming to the point that if they are looking for the foreign assets and income, and if you have tracked and if you have kept, if you have caught hold of that asset or that income, I don't think that, because maybe the subjectivity or the harassment or the discretions are seen more in respect to the domestic assets, but I don't think that that will really exist or prevail for a person who is owning any assets or any foreign income. That will be less discretionary and less harassment.
Let me pick up on the point that you heard Mr. Tulsi end with. Many people say that the real problem of black money is not the black money abroad, but the creation and circulation of black money in the domestic economy. Now, the finance minister has promised a new comprehensive Benami transaction bill. But do you believe that that is the best way of tackling domestic black money, by creating a bill and a law? Or does the finance minister actually look at the reasons why there is domestic black money, government regulation, government taxation, government red tape, etc.?
The point is very simple. Merely bringing Benami bill also will not bring any results. What is required is to go to the root cause of why black money after all. And this cause can be found out only if the government were to do little bit survey of meeting some 1 lakh taxpayers of India and listen to them by heart. And let me tell you, taxpayers of India, the number of lakhs of people I met personally every year, people are interested to pay tax, but they are not interested to have the hassles of paying tax. Abatement, you have discussed about abatement, but let me tell you, this provision is already existing in the income tax law for the last 40 years.
So again, it's not new.
Nothing new. But let me also ask through you to the government that how many people, whether businessmen, industrialists, service employees, how many of them have been prosecuted in last 20 years? How many?
You're saying a very important thing, Mr. Lakhotia. You're saying two things. One, you're saying there's nothing new in this bill, whether we're talking about the black money abroad bill or whether we're talking about the domestic black money bill. And the second thing you're saying, that those powers that did exist earlier and still do have never been effectively used, which is why people don't believe they'll be used even now.
Correct. They have no faith that, okay, if I'll cheat, I'll not tell them. There are lakhs of people. If the government were to catch each and every one, then yes, they will have great fear.
So you are actually very disappointed by these two measures.
No, I am not disappointed. What I want is, if we want the black money to come, let us make less noise and let the money come in, and do not publicize the names of the people who are bringing the black money, and also give the time freedom so that there is no tension and they claim clean, completely clean.
Meera Sanyal, what you've heard may be difficult for politicians to accept. Don't publicize the names of people who are bringing black money. Give them an amnesty to do so, but perhaps give them a tax penalty. In other words, give them incentives that encourage rather than deterrent punishment that frightens. That's what Mr. Lakhotia is suggesting. And I know it's difficult for politicians to accept because it sounds improper and wrong. But do you think that despite that, it may be a more realistic way of handling the problem?
Look, Karan, if that were the case, we would have seen lots of money come in the past amnesty schemes. And you're talking about politicians. without casting aspersions on anyone, clearly one source of black money is evasion of tax. But there are other sources of black money which a lot of people believe that politicians themselves are involved in. For example, the selling of national assets, of land, of spectrum, etc., which generate enormous amounts of black money.
And which will continue.
So, you know, it's
There's
hard to
nothing
say.
in these two bills that will curb and stop that.
Well, I'd love to see how this passes through Parliament, and I think it would be an excellent step if we actually have these measures with very strong deterrence, because then the government is sending a very clear message that starting with our own house, we are going to clean up. I think that's excellent.
Mr. Tulsian, I want to put a very simple question to you. Unlike Mr. Lakhotia, you have defended, even applauded the steps the government is taking. Do you believe that of the $440 billion worth of Indian black money that Global Financial Integrity claims, and I'm saying it's a claim, was taken abroad between 2003 and 2012, even 20% will come back? And I'm not going higher than 20%.
See, Karan, let's first understand. I've heard both the guests, expressing their views. Let me first go into the old amnesty scheme, which were all
we don't have time for that, Mr. Tulsian. We don't have time. We're coming to the end of the show. So please answer my question. Do you believe that these steps and bills, which you have applauded, will bring back even 20% of what Global Financial Integrity claims is the $440 billion that's abroad?
Karan, I am quite hopeful that yes, it will bring back 20% of the money. I am not sure about the quantum, but let me again tell you here that the monies which seems to have been siphoned off or have been adjusted can also get tracked by this law, and I am quite hopeful with this kind of legislation coming in, at least for the foreign assets and foreign income stashed.
Let me ask you the opposite question, Mr. Tulsian. Do you believe that this new law, with its deterrent punishment, will slow down, and mark my words carefully, will slow down the additional black money going abroad? In other words, less and less will go abroad hereafter.
Definitely, because definitely that will close the window. And in fact, what we have been hearing, that people, those who have their black money assets or income abroad, have already started bringing that back into India. So at least the flow from country will stop going back to the overseas or maybe abroad. So that is also one of the positive which can be seen from this legislation.
So unlike Mr. Lakhotia, who was a critic, you are completely in support of what the government has done. Give me a quick yes or no, literally as simply as that.
I am very much hopeful and very much support this law.
All right, there we end this particular episode. We've had a very interesting discussion. Mr. Lakhotia is very sharply critical. Mr. Tulsian is almost entirely in support. And largely, if I can support it, so was Meera Sanyal. And she, in addition, supports the deterrent punishment that this bill holds up as a sort of deterrent for everyone. There, I end this particular episode. My thanks to my guests for joining me. And if you have been, thanks for watching. Goodbye.